Sometimes rivalries are born beyond basketball, ones deep-seated in the DNA of individuals. That's what faces the Suns and Cavs today, two teams that have traveled different paths, but driven by a common goal. It's highlighted by the focus of two men, legends in the mortgage industry, but driven for the same success in the association. Two men whose teams have faced off on the court, and whose companies have faced off in court. Matt Ishbia, the young gun that took the title of Mortgage King. Dan Gilbert, the grizzled vet who has the NBA title, but the second place trophy when it comes to his everyday business. Ishbia, the owner willing to do whatever it takes. Gilbert, the man who refused to vote for Ishbia to become an owner. It's a battle for the ages. Two men, two teams, one game, one winner. It's the Mortgage Beef Bowl, and it's next. Happy Mortgage Beef Bowl Day, boys. I'm Espo. That is Gerald. That is Steven. Eric is talking about a lesser basketball team as he's on the ASU show. We've got Suns, Cavs, an early afternoon tip-off today in Cleveland. It's warm here. It's cold there. And it is time for some Suns basketball. Gerald, Steven, how are you, boys?
Doing great.
I'm doing great as always. Happy Martin Luther King Day to all of us as well. Nice way to celebrate it is with basketball. I'm looking forward to another opportunity for the Suns in terms of trying to shift the tides of where the season was heading and getting back in alignment with being that contending team that Ishbia is paying for and that they desire to be.
Well, you look at it, probably the toughest task in front of them that they've had all year. It is the Cavs, who are unbelievable this season. Did not expect them to be this good. I think this is a good litmus test for where this team is right now.
Absolutely, especially in your second game with Nick Richards in your rotation, and he's going to be getting the start today on top of that. So, obviously the Cavs are missing one of their very talented two big men, but the reward for Nick Richards is you have to face the other one. And this is a Cavs team that has just been chugging along all season. They have the best record in the NBA right now. They look like a legitimate title contending team in the East. So this is a great test for this Suns team in just their second game with their new center to see, can they build on the momentum they've been building? I think they've won 6 of their last 8. It really hasn't felt like that. But they're coming off their best win in over a month against Detroit. So hopefully they can build on that today against Cleveland.
Do you think they can actually build on it? Or is this a game where you kind of fall back to earth after playing some quote unquote lesser competition?
I think they can. And it's unfortunate for me because they don't have Evan Mobley, who, for everyone's money, could potentially be the team's MVP this season. And he's very much firmly entrenched in the Defensive Player of the Year race. And they're also without Karis LeVert, one of their 2 best 6 men between him and Ty Jerome. So this team is not necessarily the team that we were expecting for the Suns to be going up against, albeit an iteration of it. And because of that, because they have a little bit of a blow to their main rotation, and especially with Mobley because of how important he is to both sides of the ball for them, I think the Suns should be able to exploit some things that they typically wouldn't be able to in their contending construct.
Gerald mentioned that Nick Richards, Big Nick Energy, is getting the start today. How do you think that plays out for the Suns when you look at it against this semi-depleted Cavs team?
Well, I think him going up against Jarrett Allen is going to be a lot of fun. They like to play their offense through their centers, or their centers with him and Mobley. Mobley not there. Jarrett Allen gets a little bit more usage in that. And I think Nick Richards has someone that's going to bang with him on the boards. Some of the offensive rebounds he got, albeit Jalen Duren being active and Isaiah Stewart the same, none of those two have the same stature and reach that Jarrett Allen does with his almost 8-foot wingspan in many respects on top of the height. So it's going to be fun to see someone that can match his motor with their own motor in addition to athleticism and a little bit more size. That's going to be fun. But I think the key is going to be for the Suns, without Evan Mobley, they're going to be relying on Dean Wade and George Niang to play backup center for them. Those minutes, the Suns have to win, and they'll be able to win those by really dominating in the paint.
Do you think Oso's the answer in those Nick Richards minutes, or do you turn to Plumlee in those situations?
I would like to see Oso get some burn just as a baseline, because I would always like to see Oso get some burn now that Nick Richards is moving into that starting lineup. But I do think with the lack of size that the Cavs have with Evan Mobley out behind Jarrett Allen, I think this would be a good opportunity to test it out and see what you can get out of him in those minutes. And for me, like with this matchup at the center spot, it's tough because the Cavs have been a top 10 team in opponent second chance points and opponent points in the paint. But obviously, as Steven alluded to, Evan Mobley is a huge part of that. So I'm interested to see, because against Detroit, with the energy that he brought on the offensive glass, on just doing the little things that the Suns have needed from the center spot, he was able to basically breeze his way to 21 points and 11 boards off the bench. So are we going to see something similar against a better team today, against a better starting caliber center in Jarrett Allen? Or is it a situation where you're going to have to lean a lot more heavily on your big three? Because as we know, Cleveland has some very talented guards as well.
Just want to remind you, today's pregame show brought to you by our friends over at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. You do you at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. Visit playatgila.com for more. Why don't we take a look at the injury report? We've talked about some of it, but I see some questions in the chat about one Bradley Beal. He is going to play today. Yusuf Nurkic is still out. They said that Coach Bud said that he will rejoin the team when they get back in Phoenix. That is an interesting situation that we'll have to keep an eye on. And obviously Jalen Bridges, Ty Washington with the Valley Suns, Evan Mobley and Isaac Okoro, as well as Karis LeVert, are out for the Cavs. So Bradley Beal going to slide back into the rotation today, obviously coming off the bench. How do you think that'll impact today's game?
Well, Cleveland is a team that's very stout defensively. Last time I checked, I think they were either third or second in defensive efficiency. Only behind, I think, Oklahoma City was number one, which no shocker there. But they go about their defense in two very different ways, where Oklahoma City relies on their athleticism and their switching to throw teams off script and being nuanced with the way they do matchups. Cleveland is a little bit more traditional. Obviously, being without Evan Mobley, that shifts a lot. But guess what? They go from Evan Mobley to having somebody in Jarrett Allen that can replicate a lot of that impact with his length on that back line. And they're just able to funnel things to him at times. They can stick with their matchups. They've been switching more with Darius Garland this season than they have in years past. And it's because they can trust their center group to just do their job and generally be big, even if they're not blocking shots, impacting the psychological approach to when you're operating around the basket for them.
How much do you think that Beal could have an impact today?
Hopefully a lot. We're going to see how he looks coming off the ankle sprain. I would love to see him get downhill a little bit against the Cavs defense that doesn't have Evan Mobley protecting the paint as well, because having those two dueling 7-footers in there is a lot to contend with when you're trying to score in the paint. We know that the Suns team tends to struggle in that regard. But for me, honestly, I'm looking at the other side of the floor. This is the number one offense in the NBA. And this is a really big test for the Suns defense, especially their first look at the starting lineup with Nick Richards in with that group. We know that when the Suns play good defense, they're able to compete. And when they don't, any bout of offensive turnovers can become damning and can take them out of a game just like that. So against the Cavs team that has, a couple of movement or spot up shooters in Max Strus, Dean Wade, they're going to have to do a much better job of covering those types of shooters, even with Evan Mobley out of this game.
How do you guys feel in terms of, obviously, Cleveland, a very good defense, as you guys touched on? Can Devin Booker keep up the offensive prowess we've seen? And can KD have the impact that we saw in that second half against a team that's this good defensively?
I think so, because their guard group is smaller. The Suns like to abuse teams that have one, if not two, if not three, smaller type 3-guard lineups or 2.5-guard lineups in their main rotation. I think Max Strus is starting for Cleveland tonight in place of Karis LeVert, who was there in place of. So you see the situation that they're in. I think that's something that the Suns can poke at. And I think if they can poke at that, especially in the lineups where Allen is not on the floor, and really can get Cleveland to rotate more than they typically would when they're healthy, I think that's something that can really be a dictation point for the Suns in this one.
Yeah, Brian brings up an interesting point. Booker seems to love playing Donovan Mitchell because we heard the whole who's better debate for a long time here. How much do you think that plays in with Devin Booker loving some extra motivation at times?
I'm sure it plays into it a little bit. I mean, that talk has been constant over the years to the point that I'm sick of it at this point. But Donovan Mitchell's having a great season, and he also elevates his game when he plays against the Suns over the last few years. So that's going to be a fun two-guard battle that we're going to watch today. Mitchell obviously leading the Cavs in scoring. The Cavs having that great backcourt between him and Darius Garland to contend with. That's going to be interesting to watch as well. But I do think Booker, to some degree, especially with the tear that he's been on, hopefully we get another great game out of him today.
Yeah, and if you're looking at just who might have a better game, right, in terms of Donovan Mitchell and Devin Booker, I don't think you'd be remiss if you didn't bring up Ryan Dunn and what his impact has been lately, probably in the best stretch in his rookie year, definitely offensively, but I also feel like on the other end of the court, he's had a huge impact. How much of an impact do you think he'll have tonight with that matchup against Donovan Mitchell?
I think it's going to have to be at a certain level because though he's not the engine for their offense, he's their play finisher. If it doesn't start with him, even if he doesn't get it in the middle of the possession, by the end of it, it's going to find its way into his hands, and he's either going to be setting an advantage for someone else or putting the ball in the basket himself. So it's a different matchup than some of the matchups that we've seen with Ryan Dunn the past handful of weeks. He's very unique at that guard position. And I think it's a great test for young Ryan Dunn.
So if Ryan Dunn is taking the majority of Donovan Mitchell, are we putting Tyus Jones on Darius Garland just kind of out of necessity?
I think you put him on Max Strus.
Okay.
I think because their lineup isn't their traditional starting unit, it very much works to your favor. 1,000%, yeah.
Yeah, and I think you're going to have to rotate a lot today, which Nick Richards, well, not the perfect guy in that situation, is much better than the other centers you've been playing in switchability. So hopefully that helps a little bit as well, but we've buried the lead. This is a matchup of Matt Ishbia versus Dan Gilbert. Two men that don't like each other off the court.
Sure.
And I'm guessing don't like each other's teams on the court. Do you think that this is a delineation mark for the Suns? If they come out and get embarrassed by the Cavs, do you think that's the final straw for Matt Ishbia since it is such a personal game?
I hope not. And I think that they're doing their due diligence with exploring all of these different trade options we've been throwing out for weeks, the Jimmy Butler stuff. I think if they do come out and lose by like 30 or something like that, maybe that makes the impetus a little stronger to get something done. But I think they're already working on things to try and improve this team regardless of what happens today. But you are right. In a game like this, a highly publicized game, not just because of Ishbia versus Dan Gilbert, but just because the Cavs are the number one team in the East, I'm sure it would sting a little bit extra if you go out there and lay an egg today and you show the world that, okay, we're nowhere near where we need to be, and we got to make some moves to get there.
So Gerald's poo-pooing on the idea of a mortgage beef bowl, but how are you feeling, Steven? Where do you lie in this?
Well, because this is so unique across the NBA landscape, I think there's at least a percentage of relevance to it. I don't think it's going to be enough to obviously dictate what's going on in the game. The Suns are not going to treat this like Game 7 of a playoff series, but I think just for their personal need to find one of those bookmark wins against a team that they respect, but also a team that has the respect of the rest of the league, per their standings and their impact on all metrics, advanced and traditional stats, they need this win. And this is probably the biggest gotta have it game of the season to this point for those reasons. Now, obviously, I preface with them not being in their full capacity, but Cleveland is still a very good team. They just went and handled their business against Minnesota the night before last without Evan Mobley. So this is going to be a team that's trying to get back right themselves, but the Suns, it should be more urgent of a win in terms of the approach for the Suns than it is for the Cavs.
I'm not going to lie. I have it at 2-1 odds that Matt Ishbia has given the pregame speech today, making it very clear what this means to him. Let's see what we're picking, though, today. Let's check out our scores. Yeah, I'll give you Eric's. He has Suns by 1. I'm a little more confident than everybody. I'm saying Suns by 10 because why the hell not? Gerald, you're going very different here.
I am. I'm going Cavs by 6. I think even with the players that Cleveland is missing, they have an established system of play. They have an identity. I know that missing Evan Mobley makes a big difference there, but this is a real test for the Suns. The Pistons were their biggest test that they had in a while. Mm-hmm. This one is 2 giant steps above that for me.
You had Suns by 2, right?
I had Suns by 2. Obviously, the context that I've continued to bring up being this iteration of the Cavs team they're going up against is more vulnerable, especially because they've benefited greatly from health this season, which is not something they benefited from last year. So a lot of the numbers we've seen this season are because they've been so healthy. It's new for them to be operating without Evan Mobley offensively and defensively. And in addition to that, obviously, Karis LeVert as well. So because of the newness with them and them having to work in ways in which they haven't had to because they had to, especially with the off minutes for Jarrett Allen, I think that's something that the Suns can really poke at. But also because most teams don't run offense from the post, and the Suns can do that with Kevin Durant to the point of dictating you're going to rotate or he's dropping 45 on you. I think that's a unique thing in this matchup in particular that Cleveland is going to have to adjust to.
Kara has has Cavs by 10. King Nacho has Cavs by 5. Michael has Cavs by 6. Lonnie has Suns by 15 in the chat. Luis actually had a comment in terms of Gerald. Says, Gerald is the only reasonable one here. Cavs are number 1 in the East. We're not even in the play-in. Well, guess what, Luis? I don't have to be reasonable. I'm wearing purple pants today, so I pick a win, all right? Mario says Ishbia by 2, and Ted Offensive has the Suns by 7. So, you know what? Wow says Cavs are dangerous. I agree. The Cavs are dangerous. This is probably a game that doesn't go the way I have it, but you know what? Like I said, purple pants are here, so I'll be a little bit more optimistic. Joel says Suns by 10 as well. Let's take a look at what our friends over at Bet365 have to say in terms of what they think today's game is. Well, they don't agree with me. They have the Suns at a +8 on the spread and a +260 on the money line. They think this is an easy Cavs win today in Cleveland. I'm
surprised. I'm surprised that line is that big because I felt like taking Cavs by 6. I was being a real Debbie Downer, but -8. That's quite a sizable spread for not having Mobley.
Are we sure though? Tail end of a long road trip. It's a team that's really good in the East. You've yet to really prove yourself. I mean, I guess I get where it's at, and it's also right at that point where you might get some money coming in on the Suns because it is such a large number. I'm not overly shocked, but I find it interesting. So,
what's the question you're asking?
I mean, are you surprised? I'm not. I'm just talking because I'm in Eric's seat. So no, I'm asking. Are you surprised that it's at 8?
Yes, definitely because of the context involved with this Cleveland team not being healthy. I don't think that this Cleveland team in this iteration is a billion times better than the Suns, or even close to the way I would look at this game if they were healthy. Especially coming off of a road trip where they got dinged by Oklahoma City, and they were healthy in that game, and Oklahoma City was not. So this little things that I'm looking at with the way the schedule is set up, where they've been operating at versus where the Suns have been the last couple of games. I think it's a good matchup in terms of timing for both teams.
Mario in the chat says, suck it, Rocket Mortgage. That's Mario, not me, just so you all know. Let's take a look at what our bets are today. Our pregame picks are presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app. Use that promo code PHNX365 when you sign up and find out why, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Disclaimer: must be 21 and over, physically located in AZ. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem like Eric and wants help, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP, text NEXT STEP to 53342, or visit problemgambling.az.gov. Why don't we start with Eric's pick for today? We'll take a look at what he has. He has a Dean Booker. I think he's going to fail on that one. Devin Booker, 25 plus points. Noah, I still love you, and you are the best producer we've ever had. Nick Richards at 8.5 or more rebounds, or 9 or more rebounds. Kevin Durant, 4.5 assists at a plus 620. Steven, where are you going?
I had a couple things going in this one. The Suns have been banging the process for the start of games with Devin Booker and Kevin Durant playing the majority of the first quarters. I have Devin Booker scoring over 6.5 points in that period, and I have Kevin Durant with over 1.5 assists. In addition to that, Booker dropping 33.5 points and assists combined. Kevin Durant for 37.5 points, rebounds, and assists combined. Also for the Cavs, Ty Jerome has been arguably their best six-man, most impactful six-man. Karis LeVert is their bucket getter, but an all-encompassing impact. Ty Jerome has been their Grayson Allen, essentially. And he just does a lot of little things, and among those things is knocking down threes and talking a lot to the opposing teams while doing so. So I have him knocking down.
It's a revenge game.
In a way, yes. I got him knocking down 1.5 or more threes in this one. And then Ryan Dunn is in a great stretch rebounding the basketball. I think he's going to grab over 4.5 rebounds in this one.
Okay. Right. I don't think that's too far out of the realm of possibility. Look, sometimes you got to ride a winning streak, and I'm going for 3 straight games, winning a bet, and I went big today. Let's see where I'm at. I have Kevin Durant 15+ points, Devin Booker 15+ points, Nick Richards 5+ rebounds, Devin Booker more than one 3-pointer, Nick Richards 1 rebound in the first quarter at a -400. Let's make it hail again. I'm slowly moving up those standings. Do we have those standings? Let's take a look at them. Noah, if we do, it ain't pretty, definitely for me. It's much more prettier for Steven, who's in the green here. He has $44.92. Eric is at -$41, and I am at -213.47. But I think I'll add like another $1.20 or 80 cents. I don't know. I don't know. Like
250.
So we're just going to keep moving on up here, slowly but surely, until I take over, which will be great. There. So yeah, I'm coming. I still own the belt. So let's take a look at a couple super chats here. Arton B with the $4.99 super chat. I live in LA, so if I'm not in the chat, it means my power went out.
Oh man,
I'm
stay
sorry,
safe,
man.
Arton.
Prayers for you and your family, man.
Yeah,
Seriously.
stay safe out there.
Appreciate you making time to watch us talk about basketball in a moment like this.
I'm also going to say, just charge your phone now so you're ready for postgame. Marwin in the chat says Durant drops 30 because Cavs forwards aren't good.
Yeah, especially without Evan Mobley. Especially without him. He's going against players that are going to be half his size. And he's probably going to be in the post a lot. So I think that definitely tilts everything in favor of what's already his favor, which is putting the ball in the basket.
He starts hitting those turnaround baseline jumpers, and we know it's going to be a good day for one Kevin Wayne Durant. Any final thoughts on this game, gentlemen?
Couple of things. Watch out for the Cavs playing zone defense when Jarrett Allen is not on the court. The size could be something that, for the first time all season, might be an advantage for the Suns when Allen is not on the court. And that's something they can dictate to that they really haven't had to this season so far. And then Cleveland shooting threes. They're the best three-point shooting team in the league, first in percentage, first or second in makes, and I think they're 4th or 5th in attempts. They're also shooting 38% on pull-up threes as a team.
That's crazy.
So,
Great.
Winning a 3-point margin, the Suns have to take away the 3-point line as much as they can, and they have to make the attempts that they're able to generate as well.
I mean, do you think they're going to – I'll let you get your final thought, but do you think they're going to generate more threes? Because we've seen lately that they've actually kind of backslid on how many they're taking.
It's a great question because I genuinely don't know. I think they took 25 last game against Detroit. That's nowhere near enough to get it done against a Cleveland team like this. So hopefully they take a step back into the team we saw earlier in the season, getting up 35 to 40 attempts, because I think that's what it's going to take. But yeah, I think in this game, with it being an early afternoon game, with Cleveland having to adjust how they play based on who's out, I would like to see the Suns hit them in the mouth and get off to a fast start in this game, really disorient the Cavs right from the jump. And I think that gives them a better chance to win this type of game. I think it's going to be a very high-scoring game we see today.
All right, Purple Pants are back, but even more importantly, Amelia is back in the chat. Great to have you here, Amelia. I think you're the lucky charm today in getting a big win for the Phoenix Suns. So hope to see you back in post-game, Amelia. We really do appreciate you being here. As we do appreciate every one of you being here. Hit that thumbs up on the way out. If you aren't subscribed, subscribe, and then hit that notification bell so you know when we go live, because you got to be there. So for Gerald, for Steven, I'm Espo. Watch along starts in about 5 minutes. Watch this game with myself, Eric Ruby. These two guys are going to do halftime. We got you covered. So come on back. Ahoy, hoy.
We all silly like the mayor.